Your hands are shaking as you stare at the paper. Red marks everywhere, circles, crosses, corrections, and at the top, a number you didn't expect, lower than you hoped, lower than you told everyone it would be. You quickly flip the page, hoping no one sees, but it's too late. Someone already noticed. A quiet laugh, a whisper, a glance, and just like that, your chest feels heavy, not because of the marks, but because of what they mean to you. Why can't you ever do anything right? The voice isn't from outside, it's from inside your own mind. You walk home slowly, replaying every mistake. Every small failure feels bigger now. Every comparison feels sharper. You remember that one friend who always scores higher, that one person who always looks confident, that one moment when someone said, "You're just average." And somehow you believed it, not once, but again and again, until it became your truth. What if the problem isn't that you're not good enough, but that you're measuring your worth in the wrong way? Think about it. Since when did one result decide your value? Since when did one mistake define your entire identity? But your mind doesn't see logic right now. It sees proof. Proof that you're falling behind. Proof that you're not like others. Proof that maybe you're just not meant for anything big. And that thought stays with you. There's something no one tells you. Most people you compare yourself to are struggling too. They just hide it better. They have doubts. They have fears. They have moments where they feel exactly like you do right now, but you don't see that part. You only see their highlight moments. And then you compare your worst moment to their best one. Of course it feels unfair. Of course it feels painful, because it is. You sit alone in your room that night. The light is dim. The air feels still. Your phone is silent. You scroll for a while, watching others succeed, smile, achieve. And with every scroll you feel smaller, not because you hate them, but because you start questioning yourself. What's wrong with me? That question hits deeper than anything else, because it's not about the result anymore. It's about your identity. Before this moment you had hope. You believed you could improve. You believed effort would lead somewhere. But now that belief feels weaker, because failure has a way of making everything look permanent, like this is who you are. Like this is all you will ever be, and that's where most people give up, not because they can't grow, but because they stop believing they can. Maybe I'm just not good enough. You say it quietly, not to anyone else, but to yourself. And the moment you say it, something shifts, because now it's no longer just a thought, it becomes a label, a quiet identity you carry everywhere. And once you accept that label, your actions start to match it. You try less, you expect less. You become less, not because it's true, but because you believe it is. Here's a truth that might surprise you. Nobody you admire is perfect. Not the top student, not the confident speaker, not the person who seems to have everything figured out. They all fail, they all struggle. They all feel lost at times. The only difference is they don't let those moments define them. But you're letting one moment decide everything. Imagine two versions of yourself, one who sees this failure and stops trying, and another who sees the same failure but chooses to learn. Same situation, different mindset, different outcome. So the real question is not, am I good enough? The real question is, what do I do next? Because that decision matters more than any result you just got. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to prove anything to everyone. You don't need to have it all figured out right now. What you need is to understand one simple thing. Your worth is not attached to your performance, not your marks, not your results, not other people's opinions. Because if you keep tying your value to those things, you will always feel like you're falling short. Right now it feels heavy. Right now it feels real. Right now it feels like this moment defines you, but it doesn't. This is just a moment, not your identity. Not your future, just a moment. And what you choose to do after this moment, that's where your story actually begins. Do you really think you can improve? That question doesn't come from others anymore. It comes from you. And somehow it feels heavier when it's your own voice. Because now it's not just doubt. It's belief turning against you. You sit there, staring at your books, your goals, your plans, and for the first time you hesitate, not because the work is hard, but because you're not sure if you're capable. You open the same page again. You read the same line, you try to focus, but your mind drifts back to that result, that moment, that feeling, and suddenly everything feels pointless. So you close the book, not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, like someone who is slowly giving up. What if the real danger isn't failure, but the story you create after it? Think about it. Failure is just an event, but the meaning you give it, that's what shapes your future. If you say, I failed, so I'm not good enough, you stop trying. If you say, I failed, so I need to learn, you move forward. Same event, different story, different life. There's a moment most people never notice. It's not when they fail, it's not when they struggle, it's the moment they decide what that failure means, and that decision happens quietly. Inside your mind, no one sees it, no one hears it, but it changes everything, because from that point on you either grow or shrink. I'll try again tomorrow, you whisper, but tomorrow comes and the energy is gone. The motivation feels weaker, the belief feels distant. And slowly tomorrow turns into later, and later turns into never, not because you're lazy, but because your mind is protecting you from feeling that pain again. You scroll through your phone again, another success story, another achievement, another reminder that others are moving forward. And for a moment, you feel that familiar pressure, that comparison, that quiet voice saying you're behind. But this time, something inside you pauses, because deep down, you're starting to question that voice. Here is something most people misunderstand. Progress doesn't come from feeling confident. It comes from acting despite doubt. The people you admire didn't wait to feel ready. They moved forward while feeling unsure. They kept going while questioning themselves. And that's what built their confidence over time, not the other way around. Before, you believed you needed motivation to start. Now you're beginning to see something different. Maybe action creates motivation. Maybe doing something small, even when you don't feel like it, is what starts the change. So you pick up the book again, not with excitement, not with certainty, but with a quiet decision to try. The first attempt feels messy. You make mistakes again. You don't understand everything. You feel that frustration rising. But this time, you don't stop immediately. You stay a little longer. You try one more question. You give yourself one more chance. And that small shift matters more than you realize. Why am I still trying? You ask yourself. And for a moment, there's no clear answer, no big reason, no powerful motivation, just a simple thought, because I don't want to stay like this. And sometimes that's enough. You're not suddenly confident. You're not suddenly perfect. But something is changing, not outside, inside. You're starting to separate your results from your identity. You're starting to see that making mistakes doesn't make you worthless. It makes you human. And that realization removes pressure. Imagine if you judged a child the same way you judge yourself. One mistake and you call them a failure. One bad result and you tell them they're not capable. It sounds harsh, right? But that's exactly what you've been doing to yourself. And now you're beginning to see it. So you try something different. Instead of saying, I'm not good at this, you say, I'm still learning. Instead of saying, I always fail, you say, I'm improving step by step. The situation hasn't changed, but your language has, and language shapes belief. Belief shapes action, and action shapes your future. This is the part where most people quit, because the results are still not visible. The effort feels slow. The progress feels small, but this is also the part where real growth happens, quietly, without applause, without recognition, just you showing up again and again. You don't notice it immediately. But over time, things start to feel different. Concepts become clearer, mistakes become lessons, and fear becomes smaller, not gone, but manageable. And that's when you realize something powerful. You were never stuck, you were just scared. And now you're moving anyway, not because everything is easy, but because you're no longer letting one moment define you. You're building something deeper, stronger, more real, a belief that isn't based on perfection, but on persistence. You're sitting at your desk again, but this time something feels different, not dramatic, not loud, just steady, the same books. The same place, the same goals, but a different version of you, because now you're not here to prove anything, you're here to improve something, and that shift changes everything. What if I fail again? The question still shows up, but now it doesn't stop you. It just passes through because you've started to understand something most people never do. Failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of it. And once you accept that, the fear loses its power. Do you remember how you used to feel that heavy pressure in your chest? That constant comparison, that quiet voice telling you that you're not enough. It felt real, it felt permanent, but look at you now, still learning, still trying, still moving. That means something more than any single result ever could. There's a version of you from the past who would be surprised to see you now, not because you became perfect, but because you didn't give up, because you kept going when it was easier to stop, because you chose growth over comfort. And that choice, repeated over time, created this version of you. I think I'm starting to understand. You say it softly, not with pride, but with clarity, because now you see the pattern. Every mistake taught you something. Every setback pushed you to adjust. Every moment of doubt forced you to look deeper. Nothing was wasted, not even the pain. Here's something powerful. You don't need to be the best. You just need to be better than who you were yesterday. That's it. No comparison, no pressure, no unrealistic expectations, just progress. And progress, no matter how small, builds confidence, not fake confidence, real confidence, the kind that comes from experience. Before you were chasing perfection, now you're building consistency. Before you were afraid of mistakes, now you're learning from them. Before you needed validation, now you trust your own effort. Same person, different mindset, different life. The sound of pages turning fills the room. The clock ticks quietly in the background. There's no rush, no panic, just focus. And for the first time in a long time, you feel at peace with the process, not because it's easy, but because it's yours. What if you had quit back then? What if you believed that voice completely? What if you decided that one moment defined you? You wouldn't be here right now. You wouldn't feel this growth. You wouldn't see this change. That's why your decision to keep going mattered more than you realized. Why didn't I understand this earlier? You wonder, but then you smile slightly because now you know you weren't supposed to understand it earlier. You were supposed to go through it because some lessons can't be taught. They have to be experienced. Listen carefully. This is where everything becomes clear. You were never worthless. You were never incapable. You were never behind. You were just in a phase of learning. A phase where things felt slow. A phase where doubt was louder than belief. But phases pass. And you proved that. You don't need to wait for confidence. You don't need to wait for the perfect moment. You don't need to wait for someone to believe in you. Because now you believe in yourself, not blindly, but through experience, through effort, through persistence. And that belief is unshakable. Look at how far you've come, not in results, but in mindset, in discipline, in understanding. That's real growth. The kind no one can take away from you, the kind that stays with you no matter what happens next. And now this message is for you. Yes, you. If you're sitting there feeling like you're not enough, if you're comparing yourself to everyone else, if you're thinking about giving up, don't. Because this moment is not your final chapter. It's just part of your story. Nobody is perfect. Not you, not them, not anyone. And that's not a weakness. That's what makes growth possible. That's what makes success meaningful. That's what makes your journey real. So stop chasing perfection. Start building yourself. Stop listening to that negative voice. Start creating a better one. Stop defining yourself by one moment. Start shaping your future through consistent action. Because in the end, it's not about being perfect. It's about refusing to give up on yourself. And the moment you truly understand that, you don't just change your results, you change your life.